Hello everybody and welcome to the Gradcracker Webinar series. Today I'm really excited to be joined by our good friends at SSE. SSE is a multinational energy company headquartered in Perth, Scotland. They supply millions of homes across the UK with energy. They are looking for the very best of talent to help create better energy systems for the planet and tackle some of the world's most pressing energy challenges. Could this be you? Let's help inspire you to join SSE and give you some hints and tips on how you can be successful. We will also learn about the opportunities which will be open for you to apply for tomorrow. Saying tomorrow out with Hazel?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, she's writing it down on a to-do list. And also give you an update about what the application looks like and much more. So what we're going to do today is start with Hazel and then move on to the grads Dewa, Viren, Lena and Rihanna. So Hazel, could you tell everybody a little bit about you and your role at SSE, please?
Yep, so my name's Hazel. I work in the early careers team at SSE. So that covers everything from our entry-level apprentices all the way through our summer internships and our graduate placements. I've been with SSE just under 4 years. And in the 4 years, I think we've doubled the number and variety of our graduate opportunities every year. And we are, as Carla said, about to launch our 2023 vacancies. So it's really great to have everybody on board today.
Yeah, it's a really, really exciting time, isn't it, Hazel? And I know this week you've got your graduate induction week, haven't you? Which it's a lovely week. Me and Jess were part of that a couple of years ago now. I got a reminder on my phone of all the pictures that me and Jess took. So that was a good week. So Hazel, I know I've briefly explained to the audience about SSE. The energy sector obviously is evolving quite quickly. Could you give the audience a bit more of an overview about what people might not know about SSE?
Yeah, so again, I guess things are moving so quickly in our area. So, there's some really visible parts of the business, like our distribution and networks. If you see guys working, as I did last weekend, up the top of pylons and recabling, there's a lot of that infrastructure work that we're doing to make sure that, the need for energy and sustainable energy is increasing all of the time. And then we have our other areas of service, like our enterprise area, our renewables area. We've just launched even more major projects for some of the largest offshore wind farms as well. So, it really does pay to look behind the adverts, and we'll be linking up to different parts of our business as well. So you can really hone in and, see what all the different areas are. And we've got 4 of our areas that our graduates come into represented today. So we've got DOE and thermal as well. Thermal, again, not everyone knows what that means. We have business and commercial roles across every area as well. And there's some really cutting edge technology going on in the thermal part of the business as well. So I'd really encourage everyone, to listen today and then go digging and come and see us at the fairs. Our fairs that we're attending are on our Gradcracker hub. So again, that's the first port of call, and then back to our website if you need more information as well. But yeah, there's such a wide range of opportunities this year again. So, have a look, see what fits best with you and what fits your career aspirations, but something hopefully for everyone.
Yeah, the number and the kind of opportunities that you have grown significantly, haven't they, in the last 10 years that I've looked after the SSE account. So just thinking of things, topics of the moment, Hazel. So sustainability is something that's huge. Everybody is looking to be more sustainable, whether it's as a business or in their personal lives. So what future goals, ambitions has SSE got? And I'm guessing sustainability, it ties into that.
Yeah, and that ties in with every part. So what we're going to try and make it much easier for applicants to get an idea. So for example, our corporate finance team, you might think, well, why wouldn't I go and join an accountancy firm or a practice firm or industry? But if sustainability is your thing, on our sort of web pages and one pagers this year, we're making the link to say, well, how, if I come into corporate finance, would that contribute to our net zero targets and sustainability? Within our enterprise area as well, we're building solar farms. Which again is helping businesses and, for example, university campuses decarbonise. Everyone's got targets about it, and also to make energy sustainable within the UK markets as well. We've got lots of EV hubs. So again, if you're doing electrical engineering or in the commercial side, if you're interested in that, major projects going on, major bids and projects that people can be involved in as well. Obviously renewables is really, it's quite visible, especially on unsure, you know, especially around Glasgow where I'm based. When I look out every window, I see not so many of ours because they're a bit further away, but I was lucky enough to be down at our Clyde wind farm about a month ago. And that's when you actually see what £1 billion of investment, you know, gives to the whole sustainability and generation side of things as well. But every single role at SSE, including my own, contributes to our net zero. So don't just think, oh, it's all about renewables. There's amazing projects and technology going on, and hopefully the guys can give us a little bit more of an insight into their areas on that. Within corporate IT as well, the governance and things like cyber security, you can imagine how important that is, especially during challenging times. We've seen and we've heard, you know, some energy firms and other firms have been hacked and things. So our corporate IT team really contribute to the safety of our networks and things as well.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's such a variety of roles that are open to all of the STEM students that are watching today. Just to note what Hazel said before about the one pages. So as soon as the ads go live on Gradcracker, you know, hopefully tomorrow, if not latest Monday, Tuesday, there are little descriptions about what goes on behind the scenes of the adverts. And obviously, as you all know who watch these webinars, we'll break this down into bite-sized chunks, so you'll be able to find out about Doa's, you know, role, Rihanna's role, everybody else's role, into the specific opportunity listings that we list on Gradcracker. So thank you, Hazel. We'll come back to you in just 1 second, maybe a bit longer than that, but we're just going to meet the grads in more detail now, and then we'll go back to Hazel and find out about more of the opportunities, logistics, closing dates, opening times, and things like that. Toa, so for now, I'm going to start with you. So just a little bit of background, if you can. So where did you go to university and what did you study?
Yeah, so I went to Edinburgh University, studied chemical engineering with management.
Perfect. And why choose that degree? So what inspired you to do chemical engineering with management?
It's a really wide degree. Like you can apply chemical engineering to a lot of things, but I've been interested in energy industry since high school. Not to sound cliche, but I was quite interested to see those like carbon emission mitigation technologies, perhaps do some research on it. My interest in energy industry prompted my career towards process engineering, chemical engineering, I'd say.
Yeah. And the management side of things, so how did that come into your degree? I think there was, are you back? You're back, love, you're back.
I'd be surprised if it didn't happen. Anyway.
This is live. We all go through it.
I'm back. Management, because like energy portfolios and trying to understand the financing behind everything, that was interesting. But to be honest with you, chemical engineering with management was a degree option. So I could either go for chemical engineering or the one with management. And I said, why not have something slightly different with an engineering degree? And I did quite like it. Like I had lectures on operations, general, you know, balance sheets and everything. So that gave me that slight business acumen, I'd say. But it wasn't heavy.
I was going to say definitely worth it though, with the projects that you must be working on and things like that, to have that management element, you know, to your degree. I bet that's helped with the projects that you've been working on at SSE.
Yeah, absolutely.
Perfect. Thanks, Doa. So Rihanna, similar question to you. So where did you go to university and what did you study, please?
Hi, so I went to university at Coventry. So I went to Coventry University and I studied information technology for business. So essentially IT and business and how you would use IT within the workplace or any business that you've got.
Super. And has that come in handy with your role so far at SSE?
Yes, most definitely, because I'm an IT graduate, so obviously working with IT every day, and then within the business as well, you're working on different projects as well, so it gives you that knowledge of how you can actually use IT in different ways, whether it's coding or something as simple as, you know, opening up a Word document or email. You know, there's little things that some people don't know how to do in the business as well, so whether it's me doing training with the with people, it does help.
Oh, brilliant. At least you've got that training element as well involved in your opportunity. When you said you didn't know how to open a Word document, I noticed Hazel smiled because she's probably thinking that's Carla who can't open a Word document. Thank you very much, Rihanna. Ren, on to you. So university and studied, please.
So a smile went when Dogger gave her answer, because yes, I myself did chemical engineering as well.
Yeah.
Did my undergraduate at Aston University, then my postgraduate at University of Manchester.
Yeah.
Exactly the same reasons, the sort of broad scope of chemical engineering. And I'll be honest, yeah, I mean, the one thing it sounds like I might have missed out on, especially with where I'm working in SSE now, is the management aspect, because yes, that's where I am now. And yeah, just essentially the broad aspect of it all gives you a lot of variety. And I think just typically to engineering roles, it's just, yeah, you get a lot from it, I feel.
Yeah, definitely. So just a question then, just thinking from the audience's point of view, you know, some might be thinking about staying on and doing a master's. Should they, shouldn't they? So why did you continue to do a master's? What do you think that brought to you, and your role at SSE?
I think it's, especially if you're going down the technical route, very much in the pursuance of that. I think a master's sort of formalised, especially when I worked abroad for a year in the Netherlands, and I appreciate that a lot of my European colleagues, they felt that master's was quite necessary, especially in Europe. I think in the UK it's maybe slightly different in terms of the job market, but especially if you want to go abroad, I think a master's is quite critical.
Fantastic, thank you very much. Lena, last but not least.
No, hello everybody. So I studied at University of Aberdeen.
Yeah.
And I did my Master of Engineering in Mechanical and Electrical Engineering, like a joint degree.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I think that is basically.
So did you have a love of electrical engineering before you started your degree?
Yeah, so yes, since 14 I always had motorcycles, so I was in love with the mechanical component of it. And I am originally from Angola, and it's very like renewable energy, so they have a lot of hydro. And just growing up with those machines, it always excited me to know how electrical and mechanical sort of like cross each other. So I moved to Aberdeen for university, and then knowing SSE and the electrical systems, I just fell in love with it, and it became my passion and job now. So I'd say I've always had a passion for mechanical and electrical, I'd say.
Perfect. Oh, well, that's just perfect, isn't it? Your passion and your job in one. Who could ask for more? So before we go on and speak to Hazel again, I'm just going to scoot around the room and get a top fact about SSE to be a bit of an icebreaker and get us into the webinar a little bit more. So Dewa, I'm going to start with you. Your top fact about SSE.
Perhaps I'm biased because I've been working on the project. So once operational, our Keadby 3 carbon capture storage project will be the first power station in the UK equipped with CCS technology.
Keadby, that's where me and Jess went.
Oh, really?
It's amazing there. So if you wanted to have a look for the audience who are watching, so me and Jess went to Ferrybridge and Keadby, and there's the Insight Days on the SSE Hub. So yeah, I didn't, Jess took loads and loads of pictures and things like that. So if you want to know more about what Dewa's just mentioned, then go and have a look. It was a really, really fantastic day. Thank you, Dewa, good fact. Rihanna, on to you. Top fact, please.
Mine is not really a fact, it's more of like a did you know thing, just because it's something some people don't know. So obviously people know SSE as energy provider, but then they also do broadband and phone as well, which some people don't know. They would obviously go to other companies, but SSE also do, your broadband as well, if you did want an option.
Perfect, good option. Thank you, Rihanna. Learn something new every day. Varen, on to you.
Yeah, so SSE, I don't know if people know, it's the first FTSE 100 company to be awarded a fair tax mark. And I think in recent news, you might have heard that SSE are pledging to reinvest all windfall profits into UK energy assets. So just playing his role.
Good company to work
fact.
for.
Fabulous fact. Well done.
Thank you. Thanks, Hazel. Lena?
Yeah, for me, it will be more about for the geeks. So SSE have the innovation project for all the ideas that ENA sort of bring together. So ENA is the Energy Network Association. They build a network of the future. So SSE actually takes part in experimenting that, a network, if it actually will work, for instance, the insertion of EV or solar coming to a network. How will it be stable? How our grid will withstand that? So it's quite a good place to see like the innovation and kind of like look at the future of the network distribution, and that is quite cool, I'd say.
I bet it's not geeky at all. I think that's fascinating.
Lena, just a question on that. So do you see that loads of different companies from the energy sector come in and then you all kind of share ideas and things like that? Talk about that a bit more in terms of how that works.
Yes, all the networks like Scottish Power, National Grid, all the networks that operate within the UK will sit down and model what a network should look like in the future if we had to accommodate 10 million vehicles by 2030. So they design it. Once that model is created, each company is given a responsibility to actually trial it on their network if it actually will work. So for instance, we have Project Leo in Oxford try to model smart city, like where customer can dim down their demand, and if we have more electric vehicle, can people feedback to the network if we need electricity from the electric vehicle? Sort of like it's quite like an exciting moment to see how the grid will withstand different demands and different increase in power or decrease of power. And it's like we experiment that, and then you get to see the new technology, get attached to them. It's quite cool, I have to say. And I was a part of it for 5 months and I enjoyed it a lot.
I bet. Have you got any exciting comments you could make on where you think the industry is going to end up in the future?
I do feel like at some point we will need to get a bit more of the consumer, to educate our consumer a little bit of the power they have. Because in the future, for everybody to have, I think houses nowadays are built with solar panel. So people will want to sell their electricity back into the network because they want to save money, for instance. So, and in the future, there will be a lot of people avoiding to use electricity at a certain period of the day because it will be more expensive. And let's say usually from 5 to 8 is when most people come from work, the heating is on, the babies are home. So that's a huge demand. So in the future, we want to encourage all the consumers to sell back their energy. If someone has an electric vehicle, instead of charging the electric vehicle, if they discharge it to the network and support us, they can get a bit more of money. And then once they actually charge in the morning, it will be cheaper for them. So they can get like 25% saving or 10% saving. And it's just, and how these bidirectional flow of energy will affect our network. So we kind of like design a network to withstand those flows of electricity. So
brilliant. Any students listening, listen to what we've been mentioning here, because this might be something, Hazel, when students are applying, they're putting an application together, if they're thinking like this, and they're showing that interest in what the future of the industry is going to look like, I'm sure it'd be something you would want to hear from a student in an application.
Absolutely, and one of our MDs that I was with yesterday in Enterprise happened to mention that at their welcome day in Reading, and an intern who had been with us as well had just casually picked up a sort of idea, because again, we are looking for people to come in and not just sit down and take the training and development that's on offer. It's just about discussing, as Leno says, there's so much going on and everyone's got different experiences, qualifications, and just thought processes as well. So just by just by having a look with a fresh pair of eyes at a system that we were using as well, that went into operational mode and saved us 100k a year. So that's the kind of environment we're in. We're always looking for people to bring their ideas. You won't get, even if it's like something really out there, look at it, discuss it, look at the merits of it, and if it's a valid one, it doesn't matter whether it's a new graduate, an apprentice, or an MD that brings it. Everyone's equal and valid, that everyone's has that opportunity as well, which I think is really exciting for all of us as well. I just wish I was more of an engineer and I could think that processes through.
Me and Jess go through that every time we hold a webinar. It's like, we wish we were an engineer or a STEM student or whatever. But I think, Hazel, you mentioned before, and all the grads as well, I think that's what's so exciting about the energy industry and the energy sector, because everything is evolving, it's changing so quickly. And I think what a message that we've probably got across already on this webinar is that it's not just your engineering, you've got your cybersecurity, you've got your IT, you've got your finance, and all of those opportunities you'll accept STEM students into. So the world of energy really is for anybody. So Hazel, we mentioned that your roles, you gave us a brief description at the beginning of the webinar about the opportunities. So you've got graduate opportunities, you've got placements, internships, all opening tomorrow, fingers crossed. So quick shout out So the students watching, remember to follow SSE. I know it's only tomorrow, but give them a quick follow now, and then you'll be alerted tomorrow via email and push notification when they do open. Hazel, question to you, because I know there was mentioned it, you know, with working at Keedby and things like that.
Yep.
Where will the students be based? Is it a hybrid approach? Tell me a little bit more about the locations.
Yeah, so you'll see, regardless of which opportunity it is that people are looking at applying, you will see a caveat and paragraph in every advert is that we look for flexibility and adaptability. And a big part of that is because our business is changing so quickly, and we are looking for curious individuals who want to learn and get involved in lots of things. So, you know, as Joa said, there's really exciting things happening at Keedby, but that might necessarily, you know, it might last for a particular amount of time, and then there might be a project somewhere else, or cross-body or cross-industry, as Lino had said as well. Yeah. So there will, on every advert, there will be locations on there, but in particularly in our transmission and distribution business, and in particular in distribution, you can imagine, you know, last year we had 3 or 4 really awful storms, both in the north of England, actually right across the country. Yeah. So in those particular times, we look for flexibility in everyone. You know, we had some of our HR managers were out on site helping and supporting. People were on the contact phones just to make sure people weren't left isolated and things as well. But certainly within the 2 years, depending which program you go into, and that's why it's so important to have a look at the graduates that are on today's their LinkedIn profiles, but also look at all the profiles that are on the Gradcracker Hub and on our own web pages as well. And they will talk about the rotations they've done. Viren as well has rolled off the program, but you'll see a good number of profiles from people in the same position as well who have done 6 months rotations. Now, after COVID, or during COVID as well, not everyone was physically moving around the country, and we don't just uproot people where they need to, but sometimes if a project requires that for a particular length of time, or if you're an engineer and you apply for a job in a particular location, you know, whether it's Reading or Aberdeen or Inverness, that will be your base location. And then if you need to travel out with that area, we of course will arrange your accommodation, pay your travel costs, that type of thing as well. But as I say, if it's say, you know, if you're looking for a 9 to 5 or an 8 to 4 role, and you know you want to just have that day to day, then it's possibly not going to be the best fit for you, because I think the opportunities that will come your way, and this was what was so exciting about our graduate or welcome event. It wasn't then the truly day one, it was then sort of welcome for 136 graduates have just come in across every area of the business, because that's what starts the networking between all of the grads across the different business areas, which also helps inform them about potentially different projects that they may want to get involved in out with their day-to-day job. And all of the graduates now will be, again, we used to have it face-to-face as well, involved in a project across all of our grads as we go through the soft skills training as well, and that tends to be a sustainability project. So I think if I remember correctly, the Christmas before COVID, I bought all my Christmas presents from the graduates because it was a sustainability project, and it was shampoo bars, conditioners, little wash bags and things as well. So, but that did raise a lot of money for charity, but also it's about bringing all of the graduates together across each different business area as well, because that whole networking, you'll have those guys friends for life, absolutely, as well. But it does give a greater insight into what other areas you may wish to become involved in, or even in a project point, or when you roll off the graduate program, it may give some people an idea. You know, as say we have finance across all areas, procurement, IT, you know, so that's something to have a think about. But I say flexibility is really, really important if you want to have and make available the best opportunities for learning and development and progression. Then that flexibility is something we look for. We also do have flexible first, but again, when you're on the graduate program, you know, there are times where you do need to be in training, or you need to be with your mentors or your managers, especially in the more technical roles where you're off-site as well. It's a little bit harder to flex around those types of roles as well.
Perfect. Thank you, Hazel. What we're going to do, I've got more questions for Hazel towards the end of the webinar, but keen to speak to the grads because I've got some really fascinating stories. So Hazel, we'll leave it for now, and then I'll come back to you towards the end. But thank you very much.
Joe, I'm going to come to you first. So could you tell us a bit about your role? I know you've kind of touched on it slightly, but could you tell us a bit more about your role, and maybe even some projects that you've been working on that have been your kind of favourite experiences so far?
Yeah, so I'm in SSE Thermal's engineering graduate scheme, and so far I completed 3 placements across the business. One of them was in the process team, the other one was in the project engineering team. Another one was during a power station outage, which was super exciting. I got to see what happens when power stations go through a planned maintenance period. And at the moment, I'm in my 4th placement in the digital innovation team. It's really interesting because what I'm doing at the moment in this team is like I'm looking at all the assets we have in SSE power stations, thermal power stations, and identifying places where we can implement a form of digital technology for condition monitoring purposes. So I'm talking about all the pumps and fans and gearboxes, those like smaller assets, and trying to see if we can deploy a sensor to measure or like monitor asset health. And this could have a lot of like potential cost savings if we can, in a data-driven way, if we can understand that this asset, this pump is about to fail before it does so, you can intervene and do something that's way better or like cheaper, better for the pump, better for the company. So yeah, looking at the digital options, but that's not the only thing. Sorry, this is sliding slightly. I was also involved in the KEED B2 project a little bit. So KEED B2, KEED B3, they're different. So maybe I should like talk about that a little bit. Yeah. KEED B2 is a really efficient power station, gas-fired combined cycle gas turbine. And when I talk about KEED B3, it's actually a new project in the pipeline. So it's going to be really similar to KEED B2, but the difference in KEED B3 comes with the carbon capture and storage ability. So imagine a power station, and instead of just emitting all the gas to the atmosphere, you direct it to a carbon capture and storage unit, essentially, and you do something called like the commercial scale solvent-based carbon capture, and that way you're limiting emissions, like you're eliminating maybe 95% of the emissions, and that's KEED B3 in the pipeline. But the project that I worked in was KEED B2. What I did is I used the original design of KEED B2 done by the original equipment manufacturers, and I tried to validate the steam cycle using a thermodynamic modeling software. So I had the design given by the equipment manufacturers, and using some software, I tried to see how valid it was, and perhaps we can use this modeling later on. And KEED B2 is operational now, so we can compare and contrast with the model, original design, and the actual operational data. So that's something I was involved in, and it was really chemical engineering oriented. Yeah. But then there was some slight involvement with the KEED B3 project as well, specifically around the front-end engineering design studies. So like I said, this project is in the pipeline, it's under development at the moment. So engineers are trying to design it, but because it's a project and we have a given budget, etc., it needs to be done within a certain period. And that's why you have these FEED studies. FEED stands for front-end engineering design. So what I did is like I tried to help as much as I could with the organization of these FEED studies, because there's a lot of engineers, there's a lot of project people involved. So you need to coordinate this study. You can't just, fire a Teams call. Yeah. So it's really interesting. Yeah.
So you know the Ferrybridge site? Yeah. Does that do carbon capture there then? Or not yet?
No, I think we don't have Ferrybridge anymore. That site's shut. And no, carbon capture is, we don't have any assets at the moment which currently have carbon capture. So when KEED B3 hopefully gets like approval from the government, it's going to be the first power station in the UK with carbon capture.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be the first, because that's what we found out on the inside. It's going to be the first.
So what do you do with the carbon when you've got it?
Oh, okay. So what you do? Imagine the stacked gas, so the power station's emitting like flue gas. You divert it to something called an absorber column, and in this absorber column there's a solvent flowing, and that solvent essentially reacts with the carbon dioxide in the flue gas. So the solvent captures the CO2, and then once you filter or get rid of the CO2 in the flue gas, you can just emit it to the atmosphere like that. So that's the clean treated gas. But then you've end up with the solvent binded to the CO2. So you need to separate them in a separate process. And then the second stage of the process is you do the opposite reaction. You're separating the CO2 from the solvent. And then once you've separated the CO2, you're compressing it and sending it offshore.
Right.
Maybe to depleted oil fields, for example, or you can compress it and use it in other cases.
I think we could just have you should do your chemistry classes. We'll all sit down and
learn about the whole structure of
I need it all drawn out and explained me.
In simple terms, we're squeezing getting the minor amount of CO2 from the flue gas, compressing it, concentrating it, and getting rid of it.
I like the simple version. That's more vibrant.
That's the most important thing. Lena, I'm going to come to you next. Similar question, if you can remember what it was. Projects, bit about your role. What's life looking like for you?
Yeah, so I'm a graduate within SSE and distribution, so it's a very different department from.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So we, as I mentioned, currently I'm in system planning. So within the network, the distribution network, we. System planning is responsible pretty much for designing our network. So they are the people that design any new connection, let's say just for a new house development, all the grid design, how much power will be there. If we need a primary substation or a secondary substation, they design it and see if how our network should feed the power to the new development or existing development while maintaining certain standards. So we are regulated by Ofgem, and the Energy Network Association pretty much they set standards to how our network should look like. And within the system planning, I am responsible for planning standards. Like I'm looking at a project that focus on substations that do not meet the requirement. They are exempt by either physical constraints or economical constraints. So we have a few substations that are in very remote locations or in outer Hebrides, like for the Scottish Isles or any island within the UK, that because it would be too expensive for us to build them to the P2 standard, which is the network or the regulation standard, we talk to Ofgem, we explain what difficulties are, and then we are given an exemption for those substations. But just to mention, the network we manage have been built in the 1940s, 1950s. So some of those substations, the reason why we were given exemption have already sort of they've become a bit more important for us to hold those exemptions. My job currently is looking back at all the substations that we have in Scotland that have those exemptions and reevaluate if this still physically or economically non-viable to reinforcements. Reinforcements mean money, and money the consumers pay it, and the Ofgem also pays for it. So my job has been lately is running different softwares that sort of model the current consumption, the past 5-year consumption, as well as a forecast for the next 10 to 20 years, how much power a certain substation or a circuit will face. So if we realize that it will be the power demanded within a substation or a circuit within our network will dramatically increase in the next 15 years, and it's economically feasible for us to input that much money now such that we don't have the problem in the future, then I would advise the system planners that this substation, according to the studies that we've done, it flagged that it's worth spending that much money for them. Absolutely. So that is what I'm currently doing. It's more learn about the network, learn about recommendations and what standards should we be delivering our energy, and looking at the modeling side. We do model a lot, and then we work with other people that are within regulations that will come and sort of explain to us how regulations are, because I think a lot of engineers don't really understand much about law. I think we need people that are really good at simplifying, this is our responsibility, this is what you have to do, and then we meet those responsibility by doing the study and proving that is economically and physically possible for us to reinforce it, if it's not for the exemption to maintain. That is roughly what I'm up to now.
Roughly. That's really insightful.
Yeah, really insightful. It's interesting how you say as well about that kind of law aspect. Do you feel like you're getting more confident in that area now, with the support of SSE? Have you got that support within your team as well to kind of ask those questions when you're not sure? And, help with the knowledge that you may be not as confident on?
Oh, yes. So since I came in, there is a motto in SSE. Everybody say, every meeting, they say, no question is silly question.
Yeah.
The only silly question is the non-asked question. So it's very important because we pretty much are a national essential infrastructure. So we need to be aware of what we do. And it's really important to understand why you're doing certain things. And when it comes to law and regulations, despite me not having any knowledge, I'm always alongside someone within regulations that is capable of explaining to me why it's important. And we have to report everything to Ofgem, or everything we do has to be recorded, has a documentation, have procedures on what we do and why we did them. So it's a new exposure. It has a different way of communicating, and it's also trying to understand when I'm reporting a few things that I'm doing. I'm reporting for people that are non-engineers, so it's like finding ways to like filter my communication skills to be understandable for someone else on the other side reading it. And it's been quite a good stretch and a good like learning curve. It's just like being aware of how I communicate emails and how I send reports and how I present an engineering case of we need more money or we need less money or we need a better standard or we meet those standards. So it's been quite a good sort of like stretch from the comfort zone of just seeing electric cables and
absolutely.
headlines.
The
It's very
exposure
nice.
has been broad, which is great. Thank you very much, Lena. So, Rihanna, I'm going to come to you next. If you could tell me again a bit about your role, your projects you've been working on, and what it's life like for you at SSE.
Yeah, so I started the grad scheme actually a year ago. So I'm now in my third placement. Every placement that we do lasts 6 months. So I've done 2 placements already, and I've actually started this week on Monday. Started my third placement, So that one is now in distributed energy, which is part of the energy solutions group within SSE. Prior to that, I was part of networks, so specifically distribution. So within networks, you do have distribution and transmission as well, and I was part of the distribution one. And then my first placement was in the O365 team, so that is Microsoft 365. So essentially, that is the use of Microsoft systems, whether that's Word or SharePoint, PowerPoint, Visio, etc. So different projects that I've worked on, I mainly work on things that are internal, so that would be between the employees rather than outside to other businesses or other consumers or users that we do have. So for example, when I was in my 365 team, I was doing training, as I mentioned earlier. So that was training on how you could use SharePoint, for example, or different apps that we have, whether that was Power Apps as well. And then leading on to my placement that I've just completed, I was working on different hardware projects. So for example, if someone within distribution needed a new laptop or they needed a site set up, so if, for example, if you had the Reading site in Forbury, if Forbury needed any kit, then they can come to myself and then I'll be able to get that kit order. So managing the budget between that and the ordering and purchasing of the kit. So whether that is, you need a chair, you need a docking station, anything like that. So I'm very much IT based, but between the employees, so internal.
Can I ask a question, Rihanna? So have you made that decision then to be based internally rather than externally with the consumers and maybe other employers and things like that? Or is it kind of your next rotation will be more external? Is that how it works?
It's a little bit of both. So you do have visibility of what projects you can work on, and I don't mind working on the internal ones. So just a bit of background. When I did my university degree, I did a sandwich placement. So I essentially had a year within industry, and within that as well, that was also not with SSE unfortunately, but that was also internal, working with different employees. So I do have that mindset of being able to understand how employees work, what they need, anything like that. And then if I can get them what they need to do their job, then they can then do the next step and then speak to the other people that need to speak to, whether that is our consumers, such as customers that use anything that's from SSE, or whether that is other businesses that we work through, or for example, as Lena said, communicating with Ofgem, which is another major thing that we need to do, obviously.
I suppose it's a vital role, isn't it? Making sure that everything internally, ticks away nicely. And I suppose it's nice as well that you get to meet everybody, like all the training sessions that you've just mentioned that you've been holding. I suppose you can get to see different areas of SSE, meet different people as well. So you're getting yourself out there in the company as well.
Yeah, totally. So there's a wide array of different people that you do meet from different business units as well. And then you do get to speak to everyone. So it's a bit of networking as well, which is also great as well, because networking is a major skill that you do need when you do work in industry. So being able to communicate with other people. So for example, if I needed something from someone in transmission, then I can obviously be able to go to them, because I've got that relationship built with them now, because maybe I've helped them train on something, or I've helped them build an app, or they had a quick question and they needed some understanding. I have helped them do something, so now I can easily go back to them if I have any queries or questions like that. So yeah, it's very good being able to speak to different people as well. So even with the training sessions, if we go back, that was, for example, you've got 300 people in one session that you're doing training for. Wow. They'll have questions, answers. That's one of those things where you can't be you can't keep yourself to yourself. You do have to just go out there and just let people know your knowledge. It's about knowledge sharing. So if you have something that, or any new ideas that you can share, then that's the way forward.
Brilliant. Well done, you. Vera, I'm going to come to you next, if that's okay. Similar question. Projects, life. What's it all going on at your end?
So I guess just to give brief account. So the company that Rihanna mentioned, Distributed Energy, that's when I first started working started off as a commercial graduate scheme back in 2019, and since then I'm now working in corporate finance, specifically in distributed energy, which I guess the role is specifically a management and strategy consultant role, and with myself primarily focused in merger and acquisition activity in the solar and battery space. So most of my sort of day-to-day activity is essentially origination of new, basically working with solar and battery developers, basically reviewing their project offering and essentially providing sort of early initial investment appraisal on those projects. So essentially, just to give a broader understanding, Distributed Energy is quite keen to develop up to, I think, 5 gigawatts of solar over the course of the next 5 years, and so there's a big drive to buy project rights on large-scale solar and battery schemes. So when I say large scale, these are sort of utility projects looking to export to the grid, and it's really interesting. You're working with some very intelligent developers, some bright sparks in the space, and so it's a great time working with the different clients. But aside from that, in terms of other projects I've been involved with, so being in corporate finance, we're also spread across and involved in the other product offerings of distributed energy. So one aspect of that was supporting the heat networks team, and specifically this was me co-leading an innovation project which looked at an alternative heat source to what we currently have as a low carbon option, which is heat pumps. So we looked at recovering waste heat from transmission transformers, supergrid transformers, and so this actually worked on a project on essentially recovering heat from a national grid substation site in West Ham. And it's been a really good experience, because we've got to work with the likes of National Grid and work with them and making this project reality. It's now got to a stage where we're doing a trial project in the north of Wales at the Deeside Innovation Centre, which is a National Grid sort of decommissioned testing bed now, which is really interesting. And essentially, and also since then we've managed to get some publicity as well on the back of this. I think there's a Guardian article out there, a few hits on Twitter and things. Not that I do social media, but I've heard it's there and was doing the rounds. So that was a great thing to be part of, and it's still sort of on its journey at the moment now. I guess aside from that, been involved in a lot of partnership opportunities, which I can't explicitly mention, but specifically supporting our EV charging business. So we have a business proposition to basically build 300 EV charging hubs over the course of the next 5 years, which is a huge ambition, and we're constantly on the lookout for new partnership opportunities, and I've been working with a couple of different opportunities there.
It must be quite nice to be at the point where you're almost making those future decisions. You're thinking about it now. You're at the forefront of thinking, right, where can the industry go, and making those decisions now, which must be super exciting. So do you find that there's a lot of crossover with the projects that you're working on, and feeding that back to other teams? So for example, would there be any crossover with you and Lino and the work that you do, speaking to Ofgem and things like that, and feeding back information?
Oh, very much so. Being close to the regulatory aspect is important, especially when we're talking about specifically, for example, that waste heat recovery project. There's a lot of red lines when it comes to National Grid and where they can be seen in terms of making, let's call it, non-business as usual potential revenue. And so, especially when you're putting the business case together, you need to make sure that it sort of fits the red lines, both for SSE and especially with your partner as well. And especially in this case, when it's the likes of a National Grid, they need to be seen, doing things in the right manner.
Absolutely.
So
it must be quite exciting, again, having that experience of learning the industry and then, like you say, working with these people, these partners that, in their worlds, we're at the forefront of technology, and, having almost like a collaborative mindset must be really exciting, and working with these people. So I can imagine that is, like I said, a super exciting environment to work in. I'm going to stick with you just in terms of where you can see your future going in, and can you see yourself staying within this particular part of the business, or do you think you want to still explore other areas and where it could take you?
I think I've been sort of in terms of being in distributed energy, we've got because of the offering we have, you can get quite a wide variety within distributed energy already. And in terms of myself and my sort of journey going forwards, I like to think I'm fairly hopeful and positive about it. I think for me, just because my background's in engineering rather than finance specific, I'll be going on the journey of sort of gaining the sort of formal accreditation, sort of certified financial analyst. Look at whether I'd go on the journey of sort of the accountancy side of things. I'll be honest, in honesty, for me, I think I'd like to still remain quite involved in the project side of things as well. And with the corporate finance and distributed energy, it sort of allows for that. In terms of, I guess, the sort of the future, whether it be navigating through corporate finance and sort of entering into the sort of wider SSE group and seeing opportunities, whether it be in renewables or on the network side of things. There's big things going on there, especially renewables, where they're now entering those international markets as well, whether it be North America, Japan, Southern Europe, especially when it comes to solar and battery. So there's a lot of potential and a lot of areas where you could go to. And I think early days, but a lot.
There's definitely a road path there.
I was just going to ask Jess about international travel then. So you mentioned quite, countries all over the world. Is the opportunity for you to travel abroad, maybe as part of the graduate program or after the graduate program?
I'm not sure at this stage. Obviously now I've only had one international journey. It wasn't part of the graduate scheme, but it's part of my role in corporate finance has only been the one. I think it's very early stages now. I think
possibly
teams have only just been built up in somewhat small offices in some of these places. So I think it's we're only in the bid process of being invited to tender, and these are typically offshore wind projects. So very early days.
Oh wow! Just imagine though when you win those bids and you can go over and start up these satellite offices. Think big. I'm on your wavelength now, thinking big.
Joe, I'm going to come to you next with a similar kind of question in terms of the future and where you can see yourself going after you've, kind of completed your graduate role.
Yep, so I'll be coming off the graduate scheme around this time next year. I'd very much like to stay in thermal, and for those who are on the call who are interested in innovation and novel technologies, I do believe SSE Thermal are headed in that direction. And there's a lot of exciting new things happening, such as large-scale electrolyzers for hydrogen, gas and hydrogen blending in existing power stations, and carbon capture projects, as I've talked about briefly before. So all these projects, because of their new nature, they're really exciting, and there's no right or one answer. That's why you need to think extra critically. So if I stay in SSE Thermal, I feel like I can find out more, and that's quite intriguing. And in terms of my role, I'd like to become a full-time process engineer to keep my involvement in these technologies. And another thing to mention, and I think in terms of having masters, it's a good thing to have a master's, because then you can be chartered. You don't have to have a master's degree to become a chartered engineer. That's not a requirement, but if you do have the master's degree, it does help in the initial couple of stages of your chartership journey. So I do want to become a chartered chemical engineer with IChemE a couple of years down the line after the graduate scheme. That would be cool.
That's the dream. Brilliant, good stuff. And I'm sure you will. It's interesting, you mentioning about again, I keep saying the word forefront of technology, and I probably should have a little tally. I was reminding my times to say it, so I do apologize, everyone. But you literally are, aren't you? You're at the point now where everything's changing, it's moving forward, and where you're going to be in, say, 10 years' time. You guys are then going to be the experts, and I'm trying to touch upon a point, Hazel, which you mentioned earlier, because it was weird. I did a presentation yesterday. Today's kind of blurred together with Edinburgh Napier, and we're talking to the students about large organizations, small organizations, the benefits of so for both and things like that. But it's almost now where the lines are kind of almost blurring, aren't they? Because because it's so new. And Hazel, just like what you've mentioned, you've got the MD of the business saying everyone has a voice, no matter if you're a summer placement student, you're an industry student, whatever, because times are so changing now and everything's so new that I just think it's so exciting.
I think a phrase that I've used a few times over the last year as well was, talk about in SMEs, entrepreneurs. But when we're in larger organizations, if you transfer those skills in, we're looking for entrepreneurs. So within the business, coming up with that entrepreneurial thinking. And because we have so many different areas, as Viren said, he's been, he started off in DE, he's now in a more financial related role, but he's probably worked with at least 3 other different sectors and areas as well. And even when Viren joined the graduate program, we've now have, I think, 16 different sectors within distributed energy, which, that's doubled each year that I've been here as well. So, things are just, it's like a big snowball. But that just mean that, as I say, the challenges are there. But, if whether it's engineering or the finance side or the technical aspects within IT, as Doa said, a lot of people, there's a lot going on in the renewables side, especially this year. We've got some massive big offshore projects going on as well. But every single area, and in particular, some of the really cool engineering things are going on in the thermal part of the business as well. So I just really encourage everybody to have a really good look at our projects, what's happening as well, because I say we all contribute to the sustainability side and the net zero, so there's just so many different things happening as well, which is a good challenge to have. It can be very challenging at times. I work across every part of the business, so I sort of scratch the surface. So it's great to hear more details from the guys as well, but when it gets too technical, that's where I just pass it over to the experts as well to do, which is why they're on the call today as well.
Brilliant. And it's a great way to kind of sum it up. Rihanna, I just want to come to you last with the idea of kind of, you've mentioned a bit about some networking groups that you've been involved in, and the idea with your role as well, you work quite internally with everyone. Have you got anything you want to talk about in terms of the groups that you've been involved in, not necessarily that's kind of reflecting your role, but any additional things that you've done or anything like that?
Yeah, sure. So for myself, in terms of like where I see myself in the future, because I do things internally and because I work in IT, I don't have to stick within within a specific business unit. So I don't have to stick with renewables or thermal. So I've been on the corporate side, I've been within distribution, and then also now within energy solutions. So for me, I can move around. I would also say that with networks as well, those are now separated into distribution and transmission. So if you're interested in, depending on what side you want to be involved in, you can specifically pick if you want to be within the distribution side or the transmission side, which both have their different interests as well. SSE as a whole, with all the business units, you do get to work a lot. You do get a lot of knowledge about all the other business units as well, as I do work within IT. So if I am working on a project that does require some help from someone within renewables or within electricity, then I do get that help as well. So that's very useful. And then last thing, just like in terms of the units that I have worked with, specifically with networks, as you mentioned. That one again, there's bigger projects as well that you can be involved in, such as ED2 if you wanted to, which is a major project at the minute, working with Ofgem and everything like that. So it's obviously up to yourself whether you want to kind of stay internal or work within the bigger projects as well. You do have all those opportunities.
Brilliant. That sounds absolutely fantastic.
It perfect lead on, because you've inspired everybody who's watching this webinar. So thank you very much, everybody. Hazel, recruitment process. So we've said that we're opening tomorrow. Tell us a little bit of what's in store for the students when they do apply via Gradcracker. Could you also mention about deadlines and things like that, if possible, please?
Yep, so we're hoping to have everything uploaded and go live close of play tomorrow, but just keep an eye, and as Carla said, if you're following us on our Gradcracker Hub, you'll get an alert when that comes through as well. We don't make you fill in a 3,000 page document to apply. We try to keep it nice and simple, so really make sure your contact details are correct. We always have to call quite a number of graduates or students applying every year because they've left out, they've maybe put .con or .com or different things, or email addresses bounce back. So just make sure, pay attention to detail, because if we can't get a hold of you, not helpful. Quick tip as well, mark our graduates@sse.com email address as a safe one. A lot of the emails are system driven, so have quite a high spam threat if you've got all your safeguarding options in there as well. Mark it as a safe one and you won't miss any of the deadlines. Once you apply, quickly thereafter, you'll be invited to sit our online tests. First one is a situational judgment test. So again, you've had insider information today about a bit about our culture, our environment, the regulatory. I think we heard Ofgem, a bit like how many times did we mention Ofgem today, but we are in a highly regulated industry, so really important to bear that in mind. After the situational judgment, it's a graduate ability test, which measures things like your numerical, spatial awareness, and inductive reasoning. And once we've got all the test results from that and scores, at the end of the closing date, we'll have a look at the applications in more detail and the test scores. And if you're lucky to go through that process, we'll then invite you to do a short online video interview. Competency-based, nothing horrific out there. Career Service will have lots of materials online and face-to-face sessions at this time if you're both about how to apply, how to get through the tests, how to prepare for them. Don't go into the test cold. Always have a really good read and read the question at least twice before you start answering. Video interview again at any stage in the process. If you need adjustments to be made, a recall ops form will ask you if you have a disability, but that doesn't come into the recruitment process at all. That's for our statistical reporting and governance. So if you do have anything, or you're not quite sure before you maybe submit the test or the video interview, please contact us. The email address will be on there as well, and we're more than happy. We make adjustments for hundreds of students every year as well, and we're happy to work with you one-on-one if you need that as well. If you get through all that online, and we'll keep you moving as quickly as we can. Most of our assessment centres again this year will be online, but we will tell you in plenty of time so you know and can plan around your end of course deadlines, maybe at the end of November or as you go into exams. And please, if you have exams either side of the days that you've been invited, contact us, and wherever possible we'll give you an alternative date. If it's one of the smaller streams, we may only be running a couple of sessions or assessment centres, but wherever possible. So if you think there's going to be a clash or a problem or an issue, or if you're not well on the day, just contact us as soon as possible. Communication is absolutely key, and hopefully you've got a really good feel for our culture. We're not scary people, well hopefully not, not at all. Carla and Jess know as well. So we'd rather contact you and help you, support you through that process. If you have any technical issues, again, we know that not everyone has great broadband connections and things as well. Just flag it up in plenty of time and we'll take you through that. We will be making our first lot of offers before Christmas, and I guess the benefit for you guys is we'll keep you moving quickly through the process, but then especially if you're a finalist, it leaves you clear after Christmas to focus on your final coursework and your dissertation, that type of thing as well. Our deadline initially will be the 30th of October, but please you know, by all means, once the applications start, you can start and save a draft of your application while you do a bit more research. So have a look at the LinkedIn profiles, the profiles that are on our Gradcracker hub, and there will be more links within the adverts this year to take us back, and some one-pagers about the different parts, what the training might look like, and the rotations as well. And we do ask that you maybe, if you're an engineer, for example, there might be 6 or 7 different engineering options this year, but we ask that you have a really good look and only apply for the 1 or 2 that most closely fit your experience and your career aspirations, because say they are very different, and but hopefully again today's giving a bit more insight into those areas as well.
Yeah, definitely. Like Hazel said, communication is the key. You know, SSE, they're not mind readers. So if you do need that little bit more help, those reasonable adjustments, just let Hazel and Hazel's team know. Then obviously they'll be happy to accommodate where they can.
Yeah, just one final point on the test, because again, if people at university, I know, get lots of different support in different ways as well, and you know, some students may not need any help or support at university, but the recruitment process is very different. Types of adjustments we can make. So if candidates have dyslexia, for example, we can extend the timer on the test, or if you have a visual impairment, we can change the backgrounds and colours on the test. And when it comes to maybe neurodiverse conditions as well, we're happy to work one-on-one with individual students or graduates to help them navigate through the process. We want everyone to do the best that they possibly can. You know, having attracted people into the process, we don't want to lose people for the sake of a phone call or some adjustments to be made.
Brilliant. Yeah. And I think, you know, some of the simple errors that you could, you know, like Hazel said at the beginning of her piece there, make sure your contact details are right. You know, it's definitely a score by average. Double check everything before you submit the application. And like Hazel mentioned, there's loads of opportunities to be able to thoroughly research SSE. Look at the hub. There's lots and lots of content. So the profiles on there. Obviously, I mentioned about our days out a couple of years ago, Jess, video content and everything else. So give them a follow after this webinar. Mention that you've watched this webinar to Hazel. Like Hazel, you know, she mentioned at the beginning about curiosity. You know, you must be curious to watch this webinar, so make sure Hazel and her team know that you are doing your research, you are looking into it.
On the application form, it will ask, have you engaged with SSE at all? So if you've been in the webinar, you can add that in. If you've seen and met us at one of the careers fairs, or maybe a student society event, because we'll be doing some more of those this year again as well. If you maybe did something in the previous year or before COVID as well, put that in as well. So, you know, it just shows that you have done your research and you're committed, you know, to your application as well. Gives you that greater insight as well.
Brilliant. Perfect. Thank you very much, Hazel. And thank you very much, everybody. You've been perfect. As I say this all the time, you've definitely inspired people who are watching to apply to SSE. It is a great company. You know, me and Jess have worked with them for over 10, 11 years now. So yeah, make sure you follow them now to be alerted tomorrow when they do open their applications. The webinar will be broken down into bite-sized chunks as always, which will be live at the beginning of next week, and this recorded version will be live from tomorrow. So if you want to go back, have another look, then go to the SSE hub and find out more. If you want that additional help for like the testing and things like that, go to the Gradcracker Career Centre as well. We've got the Cracking Candidate, be a cracking candidate, lots of helpful hints and tips on that area of Gradcracker. But for now, thank you everybody at SSE for joining us today. Me and Jess have got another busy week next week. We don't stop, love, do we? So me and Jess are joined by Aston Martin Formula One on Monday. So tell us all about what they've got on offer. And we're also joined on Thursday at 2 o'clock by Sellafield. So register today to be involved in those webinars next week. But for now, thank you very much, SSE, for joining us. Good luck with your applications when you get those in. And we'll speak to you all soon.
That's great. Thanks, Cara. Thanks everyone for attending.
Thank you. Bye.